And thank you very much to the organizers of this excellent conference. I'm very glad that we are part of the 7th version, and we hope that in the 8th we also be the role as part of the co-organizers. Before my presentation, I really have to thank all the contributions that Professor Sark has done to education and his advocacy for really helping countries to reach SDG 4 and also for keeping it. So with so much passion, all of the financing that currently exists to achieve it. I come from the education sector at the World Bank, and then we are fully aligned with this goal that he's doing. And then after my conversations that I have had with several of the regional banks, everybody is having education is pushing the same. But we also need to realize that the education crisis that we are facing is one of the crises that the world is taking. So keeping the focus in the international arena on financing education is critical in a time in which we are facing several other crises, such as the climate-related crisis, such as the pandemics that we just went through, the food crisis and the increases in energy prices. So we are competing in the international arena for financing as well with these other priorities. But also on the country level, the conversation also is very important to also do advocacy at the country level. For diverse reasons, sometimes policymakers have this short-term horizon and they don't see the benefits at some point of investing in these long-term investments, such as education, that will bring benefits 30 years down the road. So it's very important to also keep the advocacy at the country level so that when there are resources, then those could be additional resources, they could be earmarked for education, and us in the education sector having the responsibility of really using those additional resources that are coming from our sectors to do the most cost effective, to get the more results in terms of student learning for additional resources that are brought. So thank you for that, and also I accept the honor to follow the presentation of Professor Campbell. So what I want to do today in this presentation is to really talk about effective language of instruction, but in the context of foundational learning. And this is where we are starting the presentation. Now we are going through a period of a learning crisis, which is very important. Together with the UNESCO and another international organization, we have tried to find a really good and quick way of putting this challenge and this crisis together. And which has come up with this terminology, which is very important. And this is simply the percentage of 10-year-olds which are unable to read and understand age appropriate text. And what we have here is the estimation that we have done for several of the countries around the world in 2015, 2019, and then we have estimates based on simulations of what has happened because of COVID and the long school closures. And then we have put the countries by regions, and maybe we have the different regions of the world. These are the low and the income countries. And so if we pay attention to the red line, which represent the 10-year-olds in low and middle income countries globally, we see that pre-pandemic in 2019, the level of learning quality was about 57%. This was a huge crisis that the world had before, even before COVID. And so more than half of the 10-year-olds in the low and middle income countries did not understand age appropriate textbook. Our simulations on what has happened with this number has because of the pandemic and the school closures and maybe the ineffectiveness of some of the interventions that were set up to deal with this element, indicate that our estimations are that by 2022 this percentage has increased to 70%. So this is really a huge crisis that put us very far away from reaching SDG 4, as Professor Sark was indicating. In the graph, we also have the purple line, which is East Asia and the Pacific. Pre-pandemic, our estimations were 2019 was about 37%, but with that variability across country and more than 10 of the 22 lower and middle income countries in East Asia and the Pacific, with more than half of their attempts they are all taking learning forward. And our estimation is that by 2022, in this region, the learning forward has increased something depending on the assumptions and the effectiveness of the policies implemented. We have reached from 44 to 50. This graph is very interesting, and what we have in this graph, we have again the countries organized per region, and we have two bars. The blue bar indicates the share of children taught in a language they don't understand best, and the orange measures the share of children in learning forward. And when you see in the right side, is East Asia and the Pacific region, in which you see that 37%, according to our estimate, have been taught in a language they don't understand well, and the level of learning forward that, based upon the simulations, is between 44 and 50%. And one key takeaway from this graph is that regions with the highest learning forward also have the high rates of teaching in languages that children do not understand well. So for us, a learning crisis that we are going through, which undermines the human capital accumulation, is intrinsically linked to language, and that's where for us is very important the topic of multilingual mother tongue-based multilingual education. Schooling, especially learning, unfolds through language, written and spoken, as we saw yesterday. We do knowledge build our existing knowledge. The student home language for everyone is here, is the children, teacher involvement of knowledge, and the basis for a start in acquiring any skill, learning to read, math, and then also all of the other school stuff. So a first essential task of the school is to have children gain formative language through reading and writing. And those who fail to do so, the students who fail to do so by age 10, are very unlikely to succeed in school unless we set up a remedial programs for them, which also add more responses to the teaching. So I think that the choice of the right language of instruction is a very important task for any country around the world. And for many people to learn, the right choice is the language that allows the student to successfully improve their school project. So I'm going to first refer to what we consider the impacts of inadequate language of instruction, and then I will then talk about what is a good language of instruction. So based upon the evidence that Professor Campo was also mentioning, we think that inadequate language of instruction policies affect disproportionately the more disadvantaged children. So let's be clear that as it's very clear that language of instruction policies are very access, equity, cost effectiveness, and inclusion, as Professor Campo mentioned. Children are taught in a language that they don't understand well in school are more likely not to have access to that language outside the school, as we will see example later. More absent, more frequently absent from class, achieve lower cognitive and language skill, perhaps never catch up with their peers, be at risk of dropping out, and eventually be more likely to drop out from the system, and some of them, even their parents, never enroll them because they don't understand the language. So those are the impacts of a bad language of instruction. That is a good language for instruction class. It's a language, it's a policy that provides instruction in a language that the student best speak and understand. And why is that? Because when using a language that the student understands, then that increases the possibility of interaction between the teacher and the student, who is, as we know, a large responsible for student learning. Teachers in the classroom then can deploy full range of pedagogical studies, questions and answers, wider discussions, small group activities, instead of resorting to copying and memorizing when the students are really doesn't So then, also in this, and Professor Campo was mentioning some of them, there is some sequencing that need to be used. First, what when the mastery of L1 of the home language has been achieved, that increases the readiness to learn a second language, to bring an L2 into the picture. And this is not a discussion of either one or the other. A second language can be taught along a mother tongue. And then when we introduce this L2, then we need to do it with a focus on really focusing on foreign language skills and advanced L2 instruction only after students have achieved mastery in L1 literacy and L2 foreign language. And then we should continue with the instruction on L1 even after L2 becomes the language of instruction. Evidence also showed that the students who receive instruction in their L1 have better continued instruction in L1, have better L2 literacy scores because of the transfer of the skills between L1 to L2. Also, within the region, and in many cases, we had a discussion of adopting English as a legal franca. We have seen example, which is a perfectly valid policy goal. And then if we are going to do so, then we should also use the same sequencing that I have mentioned before. So the same sequencing, the same optimization is done. So now that I have told you what language of instruction effective or effective language of instruction characteristics, then let me address two issues. Well, the first one is how big is the problem? And second, how much cost this will take to address it. So we know from areas around the world that 63% of the students are being taught in the language they speak and understand well. And only 37% are, our estimates are the percentage of children which are taught in a language they don't understand well. If we decompose this 37%, we will see two groups. 27 percentile points out of these 37 split out 237 languages. And the rest 10 percentile points of that 37% are in the tables of the distribution. That means a huge diversity of languages that really makes difficult to bring them into the future. But in this target, let's say of reaching 90% of the children, teaching 90% of the children in a language that they understand, then that means perhaps in average adding a little bit less than 3 languages per country, right? So that in average seems something low, and maybe I know the difficulties of doing that, but maybe that's a market that we could really think about doing. The rest of the reaching the 10%, which is the last part in terms of how young children be taught in a language that they understand, is what to be done on likely increasing exponential amount of resources and time. Just on a side note, when thinking about this issue of which languages to bring in each country, given the linguistic diversity that exists in the country, people in the world, there are more than 7,000 leading languages, but there are just a few in systems. So perhaps when these policymakers are discussing within a country and within the country context with several of these languages, maybe a choice would be to choose to bring in those languages first that share the same writing system. So we think that substantial progress on language of instruction can be made if we focus in bringing in a few additional languages per country in a shared writing system. I wrote this chart. This comes from the same publication that Professor Ocampo was mentioned. I think this is a remarkable report. This is the International Commission on Financing Global Education Opportunity. It's a report from 2016. The chair of this commission was Gordon Brown. And what this report was doing was to look at several interventions based on the evidence that might work in terms of increasing access and learning around the world. And it is quite telling, and this is the chart that they have of the interventions that they see are more related to learning and access. And we see, for example, in this chart, the dollar sign or the money sign means interventions which are less expensive, plus one dollar sign, and 3 is more expensive, right? And so they have different interventions. These interventions have different effectiveness, and so they have, for example, teacher performance incentives, which is a little bit expenditure. Then we have interventions such as better teaching method that imply massive amount of teacher training, which is much more expensive. And then they have others which are less expensive, like mother tongue instruction. And what the message and the key takeaway that I want to take from this slide is that mother tongue instruction is very cost effective in producing revenue. So now, what is the situation in the East Asia and the Pacific? In the East Asia, out of the 7,000, more than 7,000 languages in East Asia and the Pacific, with 23% of those languages are spoken in this region. There's a huge diversity in Papua New Guinea, for example. There are 836 Nepalese and Tibetans from the source in between 120 to 181. In our host country, Thailand, 73. And what we have here is a graph of the great work that UNESCO has done. Is what happened with the share, how countries distribute in terms of the share of students that taught mother tongue. And then you see a high range of access to mother tongue in the cases of Vietnam and Cambodia, which are in the bottom of the graph. Then you have a bunch of medium range of access, countries like Malaysia, our home country, Singapore, and then another group, which are countries which have a very low or high in the low range of access to mother tongue, such as Brunei, Indonesia, and Timor-Leste. So then some of the examples from the region, Timor-Leste really faces significant challenges in language of instruction. The language of instruction in the first 3 years is tuned, and then children are mainstreaming to Portuguese, but unfortunately, it's a low level of fluency on Portuguese among the teachers, and therefore that's an issue for the country. The example of Papua New Guinea, I want to bring this as an example that we don't only need to be worried about what's happening in the classroom and children have access to that language, which is in this case English, at school, but also at home. And what we see there is that in the case of Papua New Guinea, the amount of English across the screen materials to use English outside the school is really implying some equity issues in performance. And then you see from the data from INA 2021 that the students with better oral languages abilities in English, those who use English at home and outside the school context, really are better in literacy and numeracy. So in other words, almost everyone is not English or have fewer opportunities to speak English as a disadvantage in private school. This graph I chose it from Malaysia just because to highlight again the importance of evidence. And bringing evidence is really super important in the discussion about resources also. So be based in evidence. And here in this graph you have the situation of Malaysia, which introduced in 2003 English in the transition between primary and secondary. A policy that was reversed because of the impasse by 2012. And what we did, this is a paper by some colleagues that have law and one. What they did was to see the impact on skills that children were acquiring in math and science, and they used teams to assess this. And they did it in a very rigorous way with a quasi experiment. So the policy, when we compared the years of assessment of math and science, you see the 3 years of teams, teams in 2003, 2007, and 2011. Those are the years. And then you have the continuous line that goes down is the performance, the actual performance of Malaysia being greater in the test. And what you have in this continuous line above is the contrafactual. What would have been the performance of these children, 8th graders, in case if policy would not have been introduced? The vertical lines, the doctor one in 2003 is the year the baseline when the policy was introduced. The red line is the 8th graders' performance in 2007. And what you see, this is a level the 8th graders or the older cohort being affected by this policy. So you see that their performance decreased substantially, from 8.5% in both month of silence, and then in 2011, which the measure for the low economic country was affected by the policy decreased about 20%. So an introduction, perhaps not as such a policy implemented, perhaps not that really run the students in this case in their performance in this LMICs. Let me just, because I'm short of time, let me just spend 1 minute in what the government is doing in this area. When they happens in this area of language of instruction, we just put out like 1 year ago, and the author, my author of the one of the authors is here with the of that report, and then we have a position on paper on how we can try to help countries in the area of other education. And we have 3 principles, 5 principles. 2 of them are education that they should be teaching children from early childhood education to ideally 6 years of primary education in mother tongue. Then introduce an additional language is needed given the diversity of the country, then we will focus on other language skills, and then continue L1 and L2 in parallel. So those are the principles. And also we have in order to really help in the learning crisis, to decrease our country, the levels of learning poverty that we have seen. We have set up what we call a literacy policy package. In some countries are implementing this literacy policy package. They want to show you sometime with the help of our financing. And this has different pillars. Pillar 1, 2, and 3, they refer to the political commitment to address learning poverty. Second is the teacher, to make sure that teachers are well prepared and motivated to really make a change in this learning situation. The third one has to do with textbook and learning and teaching materials in the classroom. Also, teachers learn in the language that they suspect and understand. And the pillar 5 talks about reading at home, and that means most of the United States linguistic diversity having textbook talk. And this is being implemented in different countries, Sierra Leone, Mozambique, Colombia, Rwanda, Pakistan, and also the LMIC prior to that in Thailand. Honduras, for example, which and also in so here is the position and the name of the position that I learned about. And here, the new is translated to age bracket, so those are very short. And the link might have something that published here, in case you are
Thank you very much for this concept. We start with showing statistics. What the situation is in terms of percentages of children that are unable, 10 years of age, that are unable to read some of the paragraphs of understanding. Over 50%, now the 70 is really very shocking, as I said, and something that we are up against. And also the important correlation we need between poverty and learning and language that children don't understand is very important. Once again, makes the case for the importance of really ensuring that mother tongue is MLE is provided to all children in the context, and that also therefore the choice of the right language instruction is crucial. I think also, of course, answer some of the questions that Jeffrey asked at the beginning. When you walk possible, that's by referring to the report of 2016, where on one hand, clear trusted interventions are still definitely important part of information that we need to then plan how to address this, and also saying that MOE is a very cost-effective way in increasing learning. I think it's also one social media that's what I mentioned. Very much already supporting community. And also because there is we have to be one of the co-organizers of the conference in the next conference in 2 years' time. So thank you very much for that. And now we're going to open for questions. We have about 15 minutes left. So let's use this 15 minutes and let's try to see some hands. I see some over there, and then back there, and then there. So not all. Could you please go to the mics which are there and then ask the questions?
Two-sided. Two-sided, huh?
Yes. Hello, good morning. My name is Nidhi, and thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. My question is to Ms. Tina. I was in school and I was when we were talking about the implementation part of the policies, especially. So I feel the schools are one of those sites which play very important role when it comes to implementation of the policy. But I feel that the gap among schools and other stakeholders and the government agencies when it comes to collaborating efforts. Sometimes the policies are not silent practices. Sometimes schools have to adopt policies, but no such base or already evidences are there. So with all your working different experience, I would like to know what you suggest what the schools can be and how schools should bridge the gap between these policies and implementation parts of it. That's the question.
Thank you for the question. Because I was rushing, there was a section of my presentation that I didn't get to read anymore. And that had to do with schools. I think that policy should be written so that teachers can imagine how to do it in schools. I think that communication towards teachers and implementers is of prime importance. Second one is that when planning it, that's why it's important to consult stakeholders, and among stakeholders are implementers or teachers, either schools or learning hubs or community learning centers. Of course, you can possibly consult everyone, right? So to be able to sample the ideas and opinions of others is very important in shaping those products. And third, I think is that every policy must have space for innovation and adaptation and contextualization in various scenarios. There's no such thing as a policy that offers all potential teaching and learning scenarios. It's very important for that policy to have space for innovation. Sometimes good policies are available, but implementation is threatened, or implementation is inadequate for many reasons. One is poor communication of policy, two is that it's poorly resourced, three there wasn't sufficient preparation or lead time for the policy to take root, take effect. There are many reasons why that might happen. And so it's important for the school to say, this is what we understand of this policy. We create a school policy on the basis of that national or regional policy. And this is how we will implement what we have. I think that kind of autonomy and empowerment of teachers in schools is missing in a lot of national policies, including
also, I think advocacy for education will use language policy for 30 years, and I want to comment on a wonderful presentation on that, because we do advocacy for decades, and sometimes there was a bit of resistance that it is wonderful that we heard this morning. The most striking was that one slide where you talk about learning poverty and the percentage of children in sub-Saharan Africa, that was like 80% or something, not learning the language they speak at home or they know best. And the next column was even more striking, that was the Arab speaking world. And the Middle East, I didn't really get all of the details. And that was even bigger percentage of learning poverty. And that's an issue that we rarely talk about. So my question to you is that once you show this to leaders in Sub-Saharan Africa and the Arab states, what are their reactions? Because my reaction, what I thought when I talked about the Arabic languages, has been very aggressive when you see that a lot of kids are not learning Arabic. Thank you very much. Fortunately, I don't work for that particular period, so I'm not involved in the discussions with them. But I will say that, so I don't know the political economy behind the language situation in those countries. What we found in general, when we show these statistics, is that there is a disconnect between the perception of the knowledge at the political level and at the teachers are very surprised when politicians are very surprised when we show this. They usually think that their education system is much better than the reality says. So this is kind of bad news for them. But also teachers tend to think that their performance overall of the country is much different. So I think because this has a lot of advocacy, I think that we need to continue looking at these numbers and bringing them into the discussion to really say to all the countries, look, COVID was bad, really impacted learning, and then the baseline from which we started was also very bad, right? And then we need to give priority to this area, even in the context of competing further. So I think putting the data out is very important, and I think there is multilingual education also is a key agenda on data, and making data and the performance of different students with different marathons in terms of their performance in the test, and so forth. So this study agenda and the public policy and advocacy goal we found very telling when we bring this discussion. Now, this is not a discussion only with an education community, because it's talking about people that think about the same. I think that the best element for us is when we bring some economists like Dr. Steiner to talk to ministers of finance, because then you will have the credibility of talking to ministers of finance. Right? So that's also very important. Putting out this data in a very scientific way is very effective.
Can I just give my mic to Mrs. Sachs, because you were talking about ministers of finance and if you would like to add anything to the update.
Well, just to say, I was really thrilled with your presentation. The World Bank study that we see is essential. I adore your new president. I think you really know to make a big scale of the bank's activities. I want to make the case to the finance ministers. It is literally the case that there is no economic development without education. Period. It's not even possible. It's not imaginable. Maybe you can tell a few parallels, but other than that, you cannot have economic development without a well-educated population. And I think this case can be made. 22 years ago, I was asked by the Director General of WHO to help meet with finance ministers to advocate for health. And this was Dr. Brumman, no less. And she said, I had been Prime Minister of Norway, but I learned that didn't really matter. The one who really had the power was the finance minister. That's the one that actually is going to determine where the resources go. So we need to get to the finance ministers. I think we're going to have a very receptive group. They're going to fight this. What they're going to want to know is how do I finance this? And when we answer, here are the mechanisms for international financing to bolster your domestic resources, we're actually going to have a revolution in financing of education. And I think we're close to that now. So I'm very optimistic. I thought the World Bank presentation was spectacular. And I would love to get the slides, if I could see the slides, they would be presented so I couldn't see the screen. But we should be in touch. And I'm literally in the work expense of the next week, so I would love to hurry on this agenda.
Thank you very much for setting the flowers so that we can advocate for those new finance ministers when you meet them next. Do you want to also quickly respond? Just a quick one. Within the Department of Education, there is also a person, or undersecretary or vice minister for finance. And that's the key person to convene. So the key convenes the Minister of Finance. And during my time at the ministry, that was one of the first things that had to happen was the undersecretary for finance and the forces secretary understanding what programs are, how they're going to be articulated, and how they are supposed to happen in schools, and why funding that is crucial. And I think once the undersecretary for finance is on your side, it's easier to go outside of the ministry and work with the Ministry of Finance. Yeah, thank you very much. So you've been waiting quite some time to ask the question.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm Anju from FCDO in Myanmar. So I have a few very basic questions to all the panelists, but especially to the first speaker on financing, because I would like to present some key issues that we are facing in Myanmar, because it is a challenging context. So prioritizing and weightage of financing to education is really a hard battle. So whenever we try for education or more money for education, the thing to hear about donors is that we need to prioritize humanitarian costs because they are immediate. We need to prioritize health costs because they are immediate. It's almost like education can wait. Education can wait out this conflict. So it's like putting out the immediate priorities while getting the sustainability of the country. But at the same time, from the organization's perspective as well, I wonder, not because like these things are, relatively easy compared to investing in education for a long term and then to get visible results. If I am to, distribute mosquito nets or food, I can do it, very quickly, and then I can say the task is done. But in education, it is like an unfinished task and it's taking forever. So how do you deal with that? That's the first question. And then the second thing is logistic and procedural matter, which is also related to World Bank. We used to have a World Bank grant in Myanmar, and then it was frozen after the coup. And then it took us almost 2 years to reprogram the estate. So the logistic and procedural matters are taking us so long, and then so we managed to brought in, education cannot wait to Myanmar at last, alongside teachers, but even to bring in the education cannot wait took us 1 year. So these logistical and procedural matters, how do we make them faster? And then the last is the complexities of the context. It's like contexts are never unified, because we can't expect that there is a winning government and that all partners favoring multilingual education. It is not like that. The context is very loud and fragmented. And then the government or whoever is in authority, they would like to use only as a kind of political card. So if you do this, you will get it. If you do this, we will let you use. We are not the kind of classrooms like that. In that case, it is very difficult to have an effective multilingual nationwide policy and then get external support at the same time. So these are the issues I would like to hear your views as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, question. First question here, mainly that's to you. If you could give us some short answers, we will be running out of time, but it would be good if you could respond to them.
There are no easy answers, so because we're talking about the politics of Myanmar and globally, and politics intervenes sometimes absolutely wrong long-term development. The issues we're talking about are long-term. They should not be turned on and off by the person. We should have nations with long-term education frameworks and strategies, because the children don't live according to the political cycle. The children have a lifetime in the education when they're 6 years old, 8 years old, 12 years old. So we need to take a long perspective. We need to have national governments with a framework of action that actually transcends one administration to the other, because it's a basic framework. None of this is easy. The idea that donors say they have to prioritize humanitarian over schooling, for example, is a reflection of a basic failure in the international scene, which is that one should not ever have to choose between those two. That's as if we don't have enough for both. Of course, humanitarian issues are urgent, but children's schooling is also urgent and very time sensitive. And there is no deep trade-off. The world is very rich. The donor, or let's not even call it donor, just the external developments, the next world is not rich. We need to scale it up of the capacity of Myanmar, the Asian Development Bank, the AIIB, of course also the World Bank. But these institutions need to be there for the long term, not turned on and off by the political cycle that from some other place. And I don't have an easy answer for you. These are the issues you're raising are dreadful and real and on the ground. My view is that everything I'm trying to do is to help encourage a long-term strategy and long-term perspective. That's why I like the sustainable development goals and like these long, deep objectives, and we then keep to the objectives, and we say, we're not going to cut off the first education sector right now. Their children, millions of their parents. It doesn't get turned on and off that way. But this requires an education in our capitals as well. I'm a huge believer in the multilateral system. It's got, as you can see, great technocrats, people are serious and leading, and I think we need to put the solutions up front and tell the politicians you have to back up a little bit so that we can help ensure that the children of Myanmar are as successful as they can be 20 years from now, and not to play games right now. But it's about without.
Thank you very much. Time is unfortunately up. I'm sure there's many more here that would like to continue to ask questions. It's really interesting panel. So let me just close it. First of all, I really would like to thank our three very inspiring speakers. I think we all learned a lot, and it's triggered a lot of thinking, and we'll continue discussions, I will, in the coffee breaks and afterwards. So just a couple of key takeaways. And first of all, I think it's once again that Emily increased this learning. And also, Emily is actually cost effective. It can be done. Emily is also part of the right to education. And given all of that, Emily is key to address learning poverty and foundational learning. So therefore, governments have also called upon to continue to improve their policies and to ensure that they're also implemented, because we find that many countries do have policies, but they're not necessarily operationalized in the way that they should be. And then we also heard about the very important role of continued advocacy for increased public overall and also for enablement. So with that, and without further ado, I really would like to close this panel now, so that we can go to the next session. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for your presentations, and addition, we would like to invite Marguerite to present a token of appreciation to our speakers.
Không, quang mà
Okay, so we will have a short break until 11, and there will be parallel discussions in separate rooms, and we will
There's some updates and others. So what we are in conversation 2.3 we would like to please know that there will be only 2 sessions right during this presentation. Presentation 1.9 has been cancelled. And conversation 3.2